Good evening, everybody. The hour has arrived. Welcome to the Monday night edition of Know Your Neighbor. We're going to have 2 Know Your Neighbors this month, so you have another one to look forward to. So this evening we're going to hear from our neighbors, Marianne and the Reverend Dr. Manfred Bahmann. We know Manfred quite well, I think, already, because he's spoken to us several times, and he will again this evening. But we also expect and hope and pray to hear from Marianne as well about her life, which we don't know as much about. That was bad English. Anyway, so no further, I'm going to say welcome to Marianne and Manfred.
I have to use this mic. Can you hear me? Because this is the mic that,
You have to go closer.
that goes out over the airwaves. So I guess is this better? Okay. If I just talked to you on the top of my head, we'd be here for 3 hours. So now, whoops, what I want to say to you. I was born Marianne Eloise Schneider in a town called McKeansburg in Schuylkill County, where Highway 895 intersects with Highway 443 for you Schuylkill County people. My birth took place in a parsonage bedroom with the aid of a midwife and a doctor who showed up at the last minute. My 2 younger brothers were also born in that bedroom, but my oldest brother was born in a Pottsville hospital since my mother wasn't sure what was going to happen, so she went to the hospital with him. My father was in his first evangelical and Reformed church pastorate after completing studies at Lancaster Seminary. He had 4 small congregations, and he alternated use of the church buildings on Sundays with the Lutherans. Father was from a Swiss Reformed community in Missouri, just outside of St. Joe. My mother was a farm girl from Western Ohio. She had a master's degree from Ohio State University and taught high school until they were married. I should add in here that she started going to Harvard College right when the Depression hit. Her father had saved her college tuition and it was all lost. So she then went to Ohio State, which was cheaper, and worked as a maid for all the way through till she got her master's degree in a wealthy home. And her job was to stand at the door when all the other household help went home and check them for stolen silverware and things like this. Because she was a good German girl from the farm. They trusted her. Okay. Music brought my parents together. Father was part of a male quartet that traveled to Reformed congregations to promote a theological school in Wisconsin named Mission House. My parents met when his group performed at her church in Ohio. They courted for 7 years until Father finished his ministerial studies in Lancaster. My father spoke Swiss German at home with his farm family in Missouri. My mother spoke only Plattdeutsch until she was the 1st grade. They agreed they did not want to pass on either one of these dialects to the 4 of us, so the family spoke only English at home. Mother came from a strong Calvinist tradition. She had 4 main values. Faith in God, moral living, education, music. She was a warm and loving mother, but her mantra to us was, God is always watching you. She instilled in us the 2 Calvinist D's, duty and discipline. Father, on the other hand, was raised in the same Calvinist tradition. He had a different emphasis with his family. He had really wanted to be a music educator, but his father would not pay for what he called a sissy profession. So he became a minister, but he was not a very happy one. For years, he secretly commuted during the week to the Lutheran Seminary in Mount Airy to get a master's degree in sacred theology. But for some reason, he did not want to become a Lutheran. I don't know why. When we moved to Littlestown, south of Gettysburg, Pittsburgh, he commuted to the Episcopal Philadelphia Divinity School and earned a Ph.D. degree in liturgics. In the spring of 1943, when I was 9 years old, he took us into the Episcopal Church. He found this tradition fulfilling because of its rich musical and liturgical heritage. The melodies of the Scottish Psalter and the hymns in Gregorian plain chant became as familiar to me growing up as revival hymns are to most of you. We are indeed a diverse nation. Father's first Episcopal parish was a small mission church in Quakertown. I don't remember much about those years except that I had 3 wonderful girlfriends named Sylvia Moyer, Loretta Kechlein, and Gloria Harris, in case any of you grew up in Quakertown. I was particularly impressed with Gloria, who played the harp at age 10. And then there was Miss Kinsey, my 6th grade teacher. Willard, I don't know if Willard is here, remembers her. She scared the daylights out of me. She was stern and physically big for a woman. She suffered from a disease called elephantiasis, so she was puffy all over. To a young person, she looked gross, but she made us pay attention, and we learned. As a result, when our family moved the next year to Ambler, I was invited to skip the 7th grade because I had already had the math, English, and other basics from Miss Kinsey in the 6th grade. After 3 years in Ambler, my father was sent to a small Anglo-Catholic, that is high church, parish in Emporia, Kansas. This was his tradition of choice because it allowed him to chant the liturgy, which he loved to do. He loved to sing. Finally, at his request, we moved to a city church in Des Moines, Iowa, where my 3 brothers and I could attend Drake University much more cheaply while living at home. My oldest brother, Bob, was a flutist. He graduated with a music education degree, and he taught school and led marching bands in small Iowa towns. I came next. I got a master's music degree in voice, piano, and composition, and I received a Fulbright scholarship for vocal study in Stuttgart, Germany. My younger brother, Vincent, played French horn, and after graduating from Drake and the University of Michigan with his master's, he played in the Radio City Music Hall Orchestra. He taught music at Rutgers University before changing careers as the computer revolution developed. My youngest brother, James, played, but he also had a scientific side. All 3 of my brothers were in the Naval Reserve, but James joined the Navy, and after years of study and hard work, became a naval surgeon. He often boasted he did microsurgery and worked on Gerald Ford. He remembers that. President Ford. In the fall of 1954, after I graduated from Drake, I began a Fulbright year in Germany. 200 Fulbrighters from all over the country met in Hoboken and embarked on the Gripsholm, a ship used by the Fulbright Commission to transport students bound for Germany. I went down to dinner the first night and met the young man who would change my life. Until I met Manfred, I had my career path all planned out. I would spend a year in Germany learning how to interpret German Lieder, that is, German art songs. Then I would return to the U.S., get my Master of Music degree, and go to New York City to begin the long, hard struggle of auditions and rejection and poverty until my dream of a career in opera would be fulfilled. At that time in the 50s, there were very, very few small opera companies or scholarships or ways of starting a career with financial help. At that time, that's just what I said, yeah. It was very difficult to begin an operatic career in the United States. You just had to stick it out until something clicked. Broadway musicals had become popular in the 50s, and I considered going in that direction for a while so I could feed myself. But they could not compete in my mind with the thrill of singing Mimi and La Boheme or Marguerite in Faust, or someday Elsa in Lohengrin. At home, we had always listened to the Saturday afternoon broadcasts from the Metropolitan Opera in New York, and I wanted to sing there too. But back to the German student who sat down next to me at dinner that first night on the boat. Marianne Bahmann made an immediate impression on me. That was odd, because he started out by embarrassing me in front of the whole table and the German waiter. The others were all Germans, and there were several seminarians just like himself. After he asked me if I knew German, and I said yes, I had studied it in college, he took the big menu that was printed on the left side in German and the right side in English, and he turned the English side back so I could not see it. Then he dared me to order my meal from the German side. It was supposed to be a joke, but there was an undercurrent of sarcasm that got to me. The message seemed to be, you Americans like to brag, but you aren't as smart as you think you are. My first reaction was anger, because he was making me look foolish. We had not learned menu words in German class, and the first item on the menu was Ochsenmaulsalat. In fact, however, by the way, that's oxtail salad or something. Anyway, I never had it. But I fell under his spell. There was just something special about him. We spent many hours talking at the railing on our 12-day journey from Hoboken to Bremerhaven. In spite of everything I had planned for my life, a feeling was growing that I could be facing an enormous challenge. We saw each other occasionally that year. Manfred hitchhiked down to Stuttgart from Göttingen, where he was completing his theological studies. I couldn't be sure how he felt because we kept our friendship platonic, but apparently he must have had similar feelings for me. When the year was over, I returned to Drake, determined to follow my career path. I got my Master of Music degree and moved to Manhattan. I would be studying voice and opera with a former member of the Metropolitan Opera named Rose Bampton, a graduate of the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia. I paid for my lessons by working as her studio accompanist. I also coached with Miss Bampton's French-Canadian husband, Maestro Wilfrid Pelletier, who was at that time conductor of the Quebec Symphony and also busy at Curtis. But the letters between me and Manfred got longer and longer. For 3 years, I felt the need to see him again. The chance came in the summer of 1958. I was supporting myself by working at the Fulbright Commission, and one of my supervisors was Anita Warburg, a member of a wealthy Hamburg family with interests in banking and commerce. She arranged a contact with a freighter company, and I was allowed to hop a ship for $10 a day, staying in the ship owner's cabin. By the way, we ate liver for breakfast every morning. I ate with the sailors. Unfortunately, a cargo change caused the freighter to leave from Newfoundland instead of Hoboken. And it landed in Swansea, Wales, instead of Hamburg. I had to fly to Newfoundland, hop the freighter to Wales, get from there to Manfred's mother's apartment in a small town in northern Germany by railroad. I don't remember much about the journey. I was totally exhausted and probably on the verge of a nervous breakdown. But I had to see him to clear it up. Singing had become difficult. I was working on the role of Marguerite in Gounod's Faust with Miss Bampton and Maestro Pelletier for an upcoming engagement in Boston. And I had already made my debut as Mimi in La Bohème with the Quebec Symphony the previous November. But as the summer came on, I would start to break down and cry during my lessons. That need drove me across the ocean on pure adrenaline. By the time I had negotiated the logistics from Swansea, Wales, across the Channel to Holland, and then on to Hamburg by train, and then by smaller and smaller rail lines till I got to Manfred's mother's village, I was running on fumes. Manfred's mother met my train. She had been meeting the trains all day, alerted by Manfred. She did not know when I would arrive. She grabbed my suitcase and without a word of greeting traipsed down the hill in front of me and into the village. She was not happy. I had no idea what Manfred had told her, but at that point, I didn't care. He arrived the next day from Ramstein, where he was a chaplain at the air base. We took one look at each other, and apparently that was that. His proposal was short and sweet, such as it was. It is clear that we are going to get married. The question is when. Well, what could I say? I had to agree. To make a long story short, it took 6 weeks to cut the international red tape. We were married in the chapel at Ramstein Air Base on August 28, 1958. None of my family could be present. My mother in Des Moines, bless her heart, answered my letter with her assurance that whatever I chose to do would have her approval. She trusted my judgment, and I am forever grateful to her for that. We had a bilingual wedding. The American base chaplain, Claude Bond, and Manfred's pastor friend, Dieter Weverke, performed the ceremony. We honeymooned in Strasbourg, France, driving through the wine country then of the Alsace. Manfred will tell you about our life together for the past 57 years. We had 2 children, Andrea and Chris. I continued performing in concerts, and when we moved to California, I was a member of the West Bay Opera Company. I sang in concerts and local opera productions, and I sang solos with the Stanford Chorale in concert. I've published 2 books, Coping with the Limelight, a manual on stage fright, under the pen name of, oh no, that one wasn't, but that was under my real name. I had always suffered from stage fright, and that's another whole story. And I wrote West Berlin Journal under the pen name of Eloise Schindler, an account of our 4 years living by the Berlin Wall. There are copies of both books here in our library. I've never regretted the decision to share my life with Manfred, even when it meant giving up that early dream of an operatic career. He is, and has always been, worth it. Finally, I would like to share 3 points. First, I have a very strong faith in Jesus Christ. Life has a purpose. Second, every person is born into a unique life situation. Your journey is not my journey. So who am I to judge your choices and vice versa? Third, science tells us that there is no fixed point in the universe. I believe that if there are any absolute values here below, we don't know what they are. Only God knows what is. You and I are not God, and neither is an imam or a pope or a Bible-thumping preacher. In order to evaluate the things that trouble us and to control our fears, we must use our God-given brains to the fullest extent. A changing world will contain a spark of hope for the future, if only we can recognize it. And that's my story.